Hi, this is Neve from Be Coaching Solutions, and welcome to session 4 of the 6th part series of Burnout and actionable practical steps to help you navigate through it. And hopefully, if there's steps that you like and you're hearing this and you don't have burnout, then you can put some of these into place and you might never even get there. That would be the ideal prevention rather than cure sometimes. So I'm here with a great friend of mine, a truly amazing person who's got more skills than I even know how to call out. So I'm just going to reference some of the things that she's done. This is Celine Doyle, and Celine is a yoga meditation teacher, an energy healer, life coach. She does all kinds of various styles of yoga, including Kundalini, and I love the radiant body. I must ask you about that separately, Celine. And very passionate about sharing tools that have really impacted her life and really is a heart-centered approach. And she hosts and collaborates on beautiful heart-led workshops and retreats. And being a mother of 3 boys, my goodness, Celine, I don't know where you get time to do all of it, but equally was in the corporate world for more than 15 years to have the real blend of understanding the corporate world, but chose for whatever reason to leave, and really this heart-centered approach to what you do now just sounds amazing.
Oh, thank you, Neve. It's an honor, it really is an honor to be connected and to be here and to be on this series with you. And I listened back to all the other guests that you had, and I was like nodding my head, going, yeah, I agreed with everything that was shared. Such wonderful people that you had on. So it's lovely to be here with you.
Oh, I'm so glad you could join. And I think I chose this topic because it's a little bit different. I'm not sure many people in the corporate world would actually have gone out of their way to attend a session that's energy centered. But I really truly believe they're missing out because it's just not language that might resonate, or they understand it in the way that, say, healers would understand or energy healers would understand. And I'm a massive convert of the old energy healing, so it is a bit different, but I'm very excited that this one's going to be a little bit different. But I think the premise is exactly the same. It's really about helping people to understand where they are, tapping into what's happening for them, and then choosing simple steps that's going to help them come out the other side of it. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I know it's like a lot of people can go, what is energy? They don't understand it, and then they just don't want to maybe shut down. But essentially, like, we are all energy, like we're all just made of atoms that are constantly spinning, and our emotions are energy in motion. And our thoughts are energy. Everything about us is energy. And when we walk into an office environment, we pick up on the energy in the office. We pick up on the energy of the different people who we interact with. And unless we are strong and we have a good flow of energy going through us, well, then other people's energy or other environments can deplete us, and me, I'm a very sensitive person. I've always been very emotional and very sensitive. So before I had the language of what energy was, I just knew that I was sensitive and that I would take on other people or other environments on top of me. And that became, a lot to deal with. So I had to kind of go on my own journey, essentially, to kind of understand more about being sensitive and how I can get myself into a really strong flow of energy and what environments suit me as well.
And I think that plays into it so much, isn't it? Is understanding your energy, the energy around you. And we talk about energy all the time, just in different guises, like, oh my God, I've got no energy today, or like, oh, you're full of energy today, or whatever the case may be. So we talk about it all the time, but like you say, a lot of us wouldn't have the language around it. But if you don't mind, I might just move to your journey with burnout. I know when we talked before, it probably wasn't obvious that that's what you were on the path towards. I think you feel you might not have been exactly there yet, but certainly you were spiraling into the burnout journey. So do you want to just share a little bit around what was going on for you and where that led you, really?
Yeah, absolutely. So it was actually, so it's funny because I was only saying I remember the day so clearly, that because we worked together when I decided to leave corporate. And I remember sitting in the office with you and telling you that I'd made that decision. And I was only a few months back on maternity leave after my third little boy. So I did put a lot of how I was feeling down to the reintegration back into the workplace at the time, and tried to, put on a mask and pretend that I was okay, But if I go back to how I was feeling coming into work every day, I remember coming up to work, and as soon as I started getting close to work, I was feeling anxiety in my chest, and it was really kind of heavy in my chest. And when I get into work and I'd be in a particular meeting or an environment that I found too much for me, I would have to go to the toilet to kind of calm myself down. But I wasn't talking about it with anybody really in work. I was coming home and then getting very upset at home, and I used to journal about it and say, it's okay, I'm gonna wait until I'm here 6 months or a year, and and this is normal, and it's it's an adjustment period, and go easy on yourself. But I also, now looking back, think that my sensitivity was a bit of a gift, because I know it can be for other people, they may kind of just have a tendency of pushing down, whereas my tendency, my coping mechanism, was to let it all up and out, and I couldn't help that.
healthy way of dealing with more than most, but as you say, it can be perceived as sensitive in inverted commas, or overly emotional maybe, and so all the labels we would typically put on that. But you know, having delved into it a little bit, it's a very healthy way of managing, right? Is that fair?
Well, expression is obviously the healthiest way of managing. But at the time, I would have labelled myself as being too sensitive, because I felt I needed to man up, essentially. I needed to just push this back down. I'm too sensitive, and I need to motor on through. So and there came a point then when I said, no, I can't do it anymore, and I feel like I have to make a decision. And at the time, I didn't know what else I wanted to do. I just knew that the environment wasn't healthy for me, that I wasn't healthy in myself, in that, in this pain in my chest coming into work, and having to go to the toilet to cry during work was not, healthy either. So I made a decision to leave, and all I knew that I wanted to do, other than, because I'd been in HR, and I'd worked for the last 15 years in the corporate environment, and the reason what led me to be in the role of HR was because I was drawn to people, and I wanted to help people. But I think one of the things that I also wanted to do was feel I was making an impact, and I felt like I wasn't actually making an impact. I was making more of an impact on me emotionally, which wasn't what I wanted to do.
Not in a good way,
Not in a good way, yeah. So it was with that in mind that I said I had to leave. And I remember sitting in the room with you, and I was extremely upset. You probably remember, and you were amazing at trying to kind of talk me, to understand, what decision I was making. But I knew that this was I had to leave. So I feel that I kind of pulled the plug before I went into full scale burnout, because I've worked with other people who've gone through burnout, and their whole system shuts down, and they may become really, really ill with the virus or whatnot, and they can't get out of bed. Where as I was still able to function, I was as soon as I left and I walked away that day, I remember just feeling a massive relief. That tightness in my chest was able to kind of lift, and my shoulders dropped, and I did have a big cry that night. But I woke up the next day and I was like, okay, I feel so much better,
So you knew the decision was right.
I knew the decision was right, yeah.
And were you attuned to your body at that stage? I know the whole energy work will definitely enable you to find the language and to feel into it, but it was obviously, from what you say, you were aware of the anxiety sitting on your chest, you were aware of the sensitivity, and you were aware when you woke up the next day that you felt better. Was that just kind of subconsciously, or were the mechanisms there at this stage for you to understand what all of that was telling you?
I didn't have the mechanisms, I would say, at the time, and I didn't know exactly where I was going, and I really didn't know if I'd made the right decision. But I knew I knew that I had to go, because being in that environment for me and my sensitivity was not healthy, in the amount of emotion that was coming out, you know. I know I'm very unique in terms of, you know, I am a sensitive soul, and being in HR, I did find it very difficult, you know, having hard conversations with people. But I also know that I'm not alone in that feeling of having to put a mask on going to work. And that we do kind of bolster ourselves up, and those masks then become our identities, and then they kind of protect us. So the work then that I've done from that point was to kind of peel back those layers and those masks, and begin to find a place that I feel and felt completely centered and whole. And I'd never known that point before. I didn't even know it existed before I made the decision to leave. So to find it a few years on by trusting has been incredible, you know, and that's why my passion for energy, you know, and energy modalities and yoga and really understanding how energy flows through our body has become a passion that's just grown and grown. So yeah.
That is incredible. So you felt really centered and whole. I mean, that's amazing stuff. And do you put that down or attribute that to your study around the yoga and the meditation, or are there other things in play as well as?
So like and that didn't happen overnight, you know, honestly.
Yeah.
That's taken a few years to get to that.
I can imagine, for sure.
Yeah. And I would 100% put it down to having a daily practice in place. So I know from speaking to so even if we look at, so in the Western world, we focus so much on our physical body, you know, and we, you know, last week, I think you spoke about, you know, what you eat and how we balance our endocrine system, and all of that is like, you know, that's the bones of keeping us healthy. So, you know, once we kind of start to bring in those things into our lives, well, then our physical body is fit and strong. But then obviously we have our mental body, and then we have our energy body as well. And when we do physical exercise, we're working our physical body. But when we do things like yoga or we go to healing, we're working our energetic body as well, which helps us to access that point of real stillness that I'm speaking about. So it is through a daily practice of an ancient discipline that understands how we can clear our energy channels. So just to say, for example, there's so many different models, because obviously the Chinese have their meridian channels that they speak about, and they call energy chi, and then the Indians in the yoga talk about prana, and we've got 72,000 energy channels flowing through our body, and they come in through both of our nostrils. So nasal breathing is so much more powerful than mouth breathing. And a lot of people do breathe through their mouth. Now, mouth breathing can be therapeutic for different purposes. However, in our everyday life, breathing in and out through our nose is when we allow the energy to flow through those 72,000 channels in our body.
We're saying breath is energy.
Breath is energy. Yeah. So prana is like is energy, and pranayama is like the life is breath work. So it's like, yeah, it's all about our breath. And even the earliest form of yoga, there was no physical postures. It was all about harnessing our breath. And the ancient sutras, which are the original texts that, you know, were chanted.
It is chanted.
Yeah, and kind of came down through the cosmos, were Atha, Yoga, Chitta, Vritta, Nirodha, which means it's so beautiful. It's like that the breath stills the fluctuations of the mind, you know, and our mind is designed to chatter all day long, unless we control the mind with our breath. The mind follows the breath. So the calmer our breath is, the calmer our mind is, you know.
Oh, I love that, because completely unprompted, we've had at least two of the previous speakers, if not all three of them, talk about breath.
Yes.
And I talk about breath all the time. And it's really for that reason. I wouldn't have known all of that from what you've said, but I absolutely love it. It's so, so true, isn't it? Because the breath is life in itself.
I know, and I know it's so simple, and it can be, you know, it can be like, oh, you know, we're only breathing, but it is so powerful. I was actually at a Wim Hof session over the weekend as well. You know, the Wim Hof breath method that you do before you go into an ice cold bath.
Oh, yes.
And it helps.
Wim Hof is the name of the guy, the Iceman or something they call him, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's so simple, you know. So the art of pranayama is not just breathing, it's also breath suspension. So when you take a deep inhale, you hold the breath, and it has to be a really calm hold. There's no force. And then you exhale, and then you hold the breath again. And it's those holds that bring the stillness, essentially. So you're doing this continuously, you know, breathing in, out, and then holding on the inhale, holding on the exhale. And then your energy just starts to expand, and your mind just becomes extremely still. And you begin to sense your energy around you and past the limitations of your body. So that's essentially what yoga does. And that the purpose of asana, which is movement, is it helps to shift the energy before you meditate, before you do the breath, you know, because sometimes, and especially if people are in that mindset or in that feeling really anxious, to sit down and just start breathing is really tough. And one of your previous speakers spoke about just standing up and shaking the body, you know, and then doing a few yoga postures, going out for a run. This will all help to clear the energy, and then you'll be able to sit and breathe, you know. So for me, it is having a discipline to your practice, you know, and that can start so simple, and it can start with literally 5 minutes a day. And then over time you can allow it to build. For me, it'll either go from a half an hour to an hour a day. I try to, you know, fit it in before the kids get up, and it becomes the favorite part of the day because you're able to access this point. And not every day, you know, because and this is how also you become to see your patterns of what's working for you and what's not working for you.
It is finding that space where you can make it a habit, and you know, or it becoming a ritual. And so I think you're an inspiration in the sense of you're doing all this stuff, and you have 3 boys, and you're, you know, minding your own business and everything else that naturally comes up through life on top of a pandemic. So I'm thinking, if this woman can find space for her ritual, her practice, I'm like, I think I've run out of excuses as to why I can't. So maybe you'll just share how you make it happen. Like, what got you to the point that you have a practice, in inverted commas, every day, or as much as you can, even if it's 5 minutes or all the way to an hour. And I think the point being, even if it's 5 minutes, take the 5 minutes. 5 minutes is brilliant. The day, 5 minutes is all that's available, right?
Yeah, and I know it's extremely hard to start, and it's extremely hard to keep as well. And you can fall off and you come back on, but what happens is you do it for a period, and then you start to feel the benefits in your life, and then you go, I'll stop now, you know, I'm too busy. And then you start to feel things unravel. You start to feel the thoughts come in again. You start to feel the too much of, for me, the emotions, the sensitivity. I'm sensitive to everything. My environment impacts me a lot more than it does when I'm feeling centered and I have my practice. So then I have to bring it back in again. And that's just my own experience. Everybody will have their own. Maybe it's, you know, you'll find that you might be a person who flies off the handle, you know, really easy, or you have extremely negative thoughts at certain times of the month, or you find certain people really difficult to be around. Whereas when you have a practice, those issues seem to just become smaller for you. It's so subtle. When you're doing anything with energy, it's so subtle, but you begin to feel it over time. I would always say having your mat out, you know, there, like somewhere in the house, is really good. So you can just literally get out of bed. I don't like have a shower. I get straight on my mat, and then I get changed after. I think like what's happening in the pandemic is absolutely amazing in terms of access to like wonderful yoga teachers all over the world who are recording content constantly. So you can go and access some of it for free, or you might have your favorite yoga teacher and have pre-recorded content and then have them there. So I always watch and I follow. Even though I'm a yoga teacher, I still like to be taught, and somebody holds space for me while I do the poses and access, you know, deeper levels of breath work. As I said, it doesn't have to be very long. And also choosing how you feel, because every day you get out of bed and you wake up different. You know, I feel like I need something to still me today, or I feel like I need to raise my energy because I've got, you know, a lot of meetings on today and I want to be on fire. So you're recognizing where you're at on the day, and you pick a practice that is aligned with how you get out of bed in the morning. And then it just becomes your favorite part of the day, because it sets you up.
Yeah, that makes total sense. So I love what you were saying in the sense of it's practice it, create a habit. We all know it's so easy to slip back into the old ways, but if you do, you start to notice things just feel a little bit off again.
Yes.
Or not quite right, or you're feeling a little bit, not sure what's wrong with me. And that's almost then like your signal to go, okay, I need to get back on that horse. I need to get back into my practice, because I know now that I think about it, I feel so much better when I'm in the middle of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing is just even in terms of your relationship with your intuition, you know, because we all have this deep inner knowing that's always whispering to us, this little voice. And we block it because we're so busy. We're not connected to ourselves. We're just trying to firefight the whole time. Whereas when we have a practice, like, you know, and build it slowly over time, we'll begin to be able to cultivate the relationship with that voice. And you just create a tiny little bit of space for it every day, and then that will grow. And then you will start to then be able to make decisions that are aligned with your truest self and your deepest connected self. Yeah, and that for me has been like the most incredible part of this journey, because I used to find it so hard to make decisions, and I'd always second guess myself. But now I can go onto my mat and I can feel into my body, you know, what is the right decision for me. And I'll feel it, because once you start to do these practices, you start to feel your energy in your body, and you know which is the right decision. And then you'll start to even hear droplets come in of insight. So it's
your mind is a little bit
stiller.
Quieter or stiller is a better way of putting it.
Yeah.
But believe it or not, we're up on time. So I know how quick is that gone. I could stay talking about this topic forever. So maybe you'll sum up with 2 very practical, actionable points that people who are experiencing it or who would just like to prevent it could take around the burnout space to help them through it.
Okay, like the first thing I want to say is, and even though I'm not advocating burnout at all, but anybody I know who have gone through it, they have come out the other side so much stronger, because that crumbling allows something really strong and solid to grow out of it, you know, and everything that wasn't in alignment with you has fallen, and you can come up, you know. So if you're feeling that you're in that place where you feel like it's all crumbling, trust the process, you know, and allow it to crumble, because you will come out again, especially if you bring in a daily practice into your life, whereby it is a little bit of yoga, your favorite teacher. There's so many teachers out there. Pick the one that you resonate with, and that has a little bit of breath work in there as well, and allow yourself to build that connection with your intuition, so you can rise again.
Yeah, absolutely love that. Do you have one more?
Well, that was 2.
Oh, the breath work and the practice.
Well, it was like allow it. So I'm just saying allow it. Don't be afraid of it if you're there.
Okay.
And then, you know, but it is the practice.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
I was doing you a disservice then. I was going to squeeze you for one more, which would have been 3, but that's absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much, Celine. They make total sense. And like I say, a little bit of a different flavor, but ultimately the messages are all the same. Is, you know, it's getting through this in the most I was going to say sensible way, but in the most meaningful way for you, and know that, you know, if things fall apart in inverted commas, to your point, something more incredible could be built there, and that's more meaningful for you at that point.
Yes.
I think that is an incredible way of looking at it.